Okay, so what we're going to do today, so on Tuesday, we started looking at fossils. We kind of started talking about evolution, which is our new unit, and what it is, what it looks like, and started answering the big question, how do we know what's happening? Because that's always a big one, right? So how do we know what's happening? Evidence. So we started talking about fossil evidence specifically and looking at transitional fossils. So I want to kind of review what I hope you learned from that. And then I'm going to introduce another piece of evidence that we use that supports evolution, which is anatomy. So that's what we're going to do today. And then I do have another, well, it's kind of like a worksheet or packet, but we're going to work through it together bit by bit. And then at the end, hopefully we'll have time for an exit ticket. So that's what we're doing today. With the assignment that we did on Tuesday, if you did not finish it, that's okay. We have certain things that we have to cover before spring break. So Tuesday, Thursday, and then next Tuesday, we have to cover some things. But my goal is that next Thursday, I'm going to give you some review, a checkpoint or a quick quiz, whatever you kind of want to call it, and then time to just make up assignments. So you might notice that the deadline for Tuesday's assignment is until next Friday. So I want to give you time, but I want to make sure that we cover what we need to cover before I give you time. So that's kind of what to look forward to if you didn't get that done. I hope to give you some time in the future. So like I said, we talked about evolution and how that's a change over time. Like when we use the term evolution or things evolving, we refer to things changing over time. And in science, when we talk about evolution, it's the slow, gradual change of a species over time. So very, very slow, like millions of years. So one way that we have evidence that kind of shows and supports this idea is by looking at fossils. And as a reminder, fossils are just any trace or remains of an organism that has been preserved by natural processes. So it's just whole organisms or bits like bones that are found in ice, amber, rock, things like that. And obviously, we know that fossils can kind of paint a picture of what the world used to look like, and if it was different, which it was, right? On Tuesday, we looked at primarily transitional fossils. So this was kind of the interactive that you looked at. Transitional fossils, what I mean by those is those are fossils that have characteristics that are similar to both ancestral organisms, so things that are older than it, and characteristics of more modern ones, so things that kind of evolved after. So it's kind of like the in-betweens, I like to call them. So these transitional fossils can show us how, for example, more aquatic organisms like fish evolved, and again, over millions of years, to become more terrestrial or more land-based. And that's exactly what we looked at on Tuesday. So what we learned from that, hopefully you knew that we were looking at fossils of fish, tetrapods, and tetrapods are those four-limbed animals. Tetra means four, pod means foot, so it kind of makes sense. And those transitional forms, the in-betweens. So we kind of looked how fish became tetrapods. So scientists have hypothesized that tetrapods evolved from fish, and it's supported by these transitional fossils, the in-betweens. And those transitional fossils had so many anatomical similarities to both fish and tetrapods that it just made sense that one became another. Sorry. And that brings us to our next bit of evidence is anatomical. So we were talking about how we know that they're related, or we know that they kind of evolved from one thing. Anatomy tells us a lot about how organisms are related to each other. So that's what we're going to focus on today. We're going to focus on anatomical evidence. And when I talk about anatomy or anatomical anything is just referring to the structures of the body. So I could be referring to certain bones, certain muscles, certain organs. When you were looking at characteristics of those fossils on Tuesday, you were looking at things like gills, lungs, humerus, which is your upper arm bone, digits, which are your fingers, rib cage. Those are all anatomical structures or parts of your anatomy. So that's what we're going to focus on today. So before I give you some definitions, I'm going to go ahead and get us pulling up this assignment. So you're going to go on Canvas and you're going to go to modules. And again, we're in Unit 2 and today is March 18th. So you're going to click on March 18th. And this is our page. Still looking at the basics of evidence of evolution. Gosh, I keep meaning to make sure that I put this as a slides or a PowerPoint, but I keep forgetting. Anyway, this was the slides that I'm going to show you. And the second bullet point is the assignment that we're working on today. So go ahead and click on it. And because there's a small part where you are going to be coloring, I do want you to use ICYMI. So take a moment to download this document. This is what it looks like. Go ahead and take that, download it, and upload it into ICYMI. I'll give you a couple minutes. Let me know if you have difficulty finding it. Now I'm going to go ahead and pull it up myself. Also, if you came in late, please make sure to put your name in the chat so that I know to go back and fix it when I have some time. Okay, so hopefully, and thanks Stephanie and Demone, perfect. So at the top, it just gives you some general information. So the background just says that much evidence has been found to indicate that living things have evolved or they have changed gradually during their natural history. The study of fossils, as well as work in embryology, biochemistry, and comparative anatomy provides evidence for evolution. We've already talked about fossils. We're going to talk about embryology and biochemistry, but today we're focusing on comparative anatomy. And that just means we're comparing anatomy from different organisms. So in this lab, you're going to learn about homologous, analogous, and vestigial structures and how they play a role in the theory of evolution. So the first part here is homologous structures. I'm going to go ahead and put it on, put the definition up on the board for you. So this is what you'll put on that line. Homologous structures are structures that are same in structure, so they look the same, but they are different in function. They do different things. They same in structure, different in function. Look the same, do different things. Make sure to write that on your definition line. So, okay. So what to do on this part? Okay, so number one, there's an A, B, and C part to this. A is where you color. So A says color each part of the human arm a different color. And then make note that all the bones in the wrist should be a single color because they're all like metacarpals. And all the bones of the hand should be a different single colors because they're all carpals. So each type of bone gets the same color. There might be multiple of those types of bones, but we'll get to that in a second. So after you color each part of the human arm a different color, you're going to then color the corresponding bone, the same bone, in each of the other animals. And you're going to color it the same color as whatever you did the human bone. So I'm going to show you quickly what I kind of mean by that. So on this second page, you have the arm of a human, the fin of a whale, the leg of a crocodile, the leg of a cat, the wing of a bird, and the wing of a bat. Oops, excuse me, I didn't mean to go that far. So what you're going to do is with your drawing tool, see here how the human arm has the different bones. You have the humerus, the radius, the ulna, the carpal, the metacarpal. Oh, I switched those around. That's my bad. And the phalanges. Okay, so you're going to color each one of those a different color. So let's say I want to color the humerus purple and the radius orange and the ulna pink. It's a really crappy job, but you get the point, I think. So then you're going to go and move on to each other organism's limb, so the whale's fin, and you're going to color those corresponding bones the same. So you might notice that they have a similar pattern. So if I erase my coloring from the humerus, you might tell that it's kind of speckled. There's little dots. So over here on the whale, you see that bone that has those dots too. So that's going to be the humerus of the whale. And then over here, you see this bone has kind of spots. That's the humerus of the crocodile. So the types of patterns that they have kind of help you figure out which bone is which on the other organisms. Okay, notice that the radius is striped. Oops. Sorry about that. There we go. Notice how the radius is striped in the human arm here. It's also going to be striped here and here. Okay, so just follow the pattern, color them all the same thing. Okay, so then after your coloring for B, it asks you to describe the function of each structure. So we're looking at these limbs. So for example, the human, we looked at the human arm. So what is the function of the human arm? Like, what do we use this for? Same for the whale's fin. What do they use that for? The cat's leg, what do they use that for? So all that you put in B is the function of that limb. What do they use it for? And then for C, it's going to be a simple yes or no answer. Just asks, are the bones arranged in a similar way in each animal? So yes or no. Are they arranged similarly or are they arranged very different? Alrighty, so really quickly, I want to go over B and C. So hopefully you're able to color all of these bones and it looks beautiful. So with those bones, I want to talk about what the structure of each of those, what the function of each of those structures is. So since all my students in this class today are on Zoom, I would like your input via chat. So we're going to just do B. So the human arm, what do we use our arms for? Yes. Nice job, Adria. Yeah. Y'all are on it. We use the human arm to grab. Oh, I'm not going to use this because I don't have to delete it. So I'm going to use that. Yeah, to grab. Oh, I like to reach. Sure, for sure. Good ones. To write. Yeah. Use our arms for a lot of things. Grab is the main one, but of course we can reach and grab things. We can grab a pencil and write. All very great functions for sure. Or eat, heck yeah. All great things. All right, what about a whale's fin? Whale's flipper, what do they use those for? Yes, absolutely. They use it to swim. They use it to glide through the water. Beautiful. All right, what about a cat's leg? What do they use those for? Nice. Walking. I definitely also saw I saw another good one. What was it? I forgot. I'm getting old. Oh, let me go up here real quick. To climb. Yeah, that's a good one too. Oh my gosh, I keep touching things. Sorry, I'm struggling. But climb was a good one. To jump, all great ones for sure. Walk, climb, jump. Absolutely. Run. Yes. Absolutely. All right. What about a bat's wing? What do they use those for? Yes. Y'all are on it. They use it to fly. Oh, stay warm. Oh, I like that one. Like when they're hanging upside down, hibernating, and they kind of wrap themselves up in their wings. Like it. All right. What about a bird? How do the birds use their wings? Yeah, same thing. Great. You guys got it. They fly. All right, a crocodile. What do crocodiles use their limbs for? Yeah, yeah. To swim, to move, walk. Yeah, great things. For sure. So hopefully it points, you've seen that all of these limbs are used for different things. Some are used very similarly, like crocodile and cat's legs are used to walk and move, and birds and bats' wings are used to fly. But between the human and the whale and the cat and the bird, very different functions, right? Brings us to letter C. So when we're looking at this second page and we see all of these, maybe. Are you going to move for me or what? My bad. Okay. So we're looking at these structures. We're looking at the bones. You painted or colored all of the humeruses, all of the radiuses, all of the ulnas. So for C, it asks us, are the bones arranged in a similar way in each animal? What do y'all think? Are they arranged in a similar way or not? They're very different. Okay, we got one no. What do we think? Are they arranged similarly? Oh man, see, I would say yes. So even though they look a little different, we still have the humeruses that are right at the top, right? Humeruses are the upper arm bones in us, but it's also technically like the upper arm in the whale, the upper arm in the crocodile, the upper arm in the cat, the upper arm in the bird, and the upper arm in the bat. Okay, so they're all kind of in the same spot. And then when you look at these two lower arm bones, so our radiuses and our ulnas are right next to each other in our forearm, right? Where are we at here? Okay, so they're right next to each other. So if you're looking at the radiuses and the ulnas, those two bones that are in the forearm, okay, you'll see that in the whale, they're also right next to each other. In the crocodile, they're also right next to each other. In the cat, they're right next to each other. In the bird, they're right next to each other. And in the bat, they're right next to each other. Okay, so far we are seeing that they still have the same upper arm bone and the same two lower arm bones. Okay, and then even the like wrist into hand, okay, there's a whole bunch of wrist bones, and then you get those digits in the human. Same thing in the whale. You have the wrist bones here, and all these digits go out. In the crocodile, you have the wrist here, digits go out. Then looking at the cat, you have the wrist, bones here, digits go out. And the bird, wrist here, bones out. And the bat, wrist here, bones out. So even though they look pretty different because they do different things, structurally, they all have the humerus, the upper arm bones, the radius and the ulna, the lower arm, and the wrist bones and the hand bones. So I would argue that they are arranged in a pretty similar way. Okay, cool. So the next one is going to be analogous structures here. So I'm going to go ahead and put up the definition for that as well. Okay, so it might look very similar. You're probably thinking, we just wrote this down. So what we learned with homologous structures is they have the same structure, different function. They look the same, do different things. In analogous, we literally switch that around. So now we are looking at structures that are same in function, so they do the same thing, but they are different in structure, so they look different. For example, these wings, okay? Wings tend to help us fly, but a bat wing versus a butterfly wing versus a bird wing, they're different structurally. So I'm going to give you a little bit to go ahead and write that definition next to analogous structures definition. So this next part is shorter. It's, I think, 3 questions. Yeah. So for analogous structures, we're looking at structures that are the same in function, so they do the same thing, but they look different structurally. So here we're looking at 2 different wings. We're going to look at a butterfly wing versus a bird wing. And the 3 questions are just, what function do these structures share? So both wings, what do they help the organism do? For B, it says, how are these structures different? So while they both help that organism do a certain thing, how do they look different? What is different about what they look like? And then C is just, do birds and insects share any structural similarities that would suggest that they are closely related? So we're looking at structural similarities, so kind of the elements inside the wing. All righty. So we're going to go ahead and go through these 3 questions real quickly. So again, you're the only ones in here, so let me know in the chat what you think. So we looked at these 2 structures, the bird wing and the butterfly wing. So what function do these structures share? What do they both do?
Fly.
Yes. Yes, 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 yes. Fly. Whoop. All right, so then tell me how they look. How do they look structurally different? They both do the same thing, but how are they structurally different?
They're different sizes.
Okay, yeah, they're different sizes. Okay, different lengths.
The bird is the only one that has a wing. I mean, that has bones.
Yeah, it's a good one. These are all good, but the bones I was looking at also, because that's a big one. So insects like butterflies don't have bones at all. They have what's known as an exoskeleton. They don't have internal skeletons like we do. So that is a huge difference structurally. They just don't have bones. And then you can also, is there anything else that you also noticed other than size, length, bones? Is there something else? So make sure everyone let me know their thoughts. Also, you can look at the material that these wings are made out of, skin and feathers for birds.
Feathers.
Yeah, yeah, that's exactly what I was gonna go for. You're on it. Yeah. So birds have like skin and feathers, and butterflies have kind of like a membrane covering their wings. So they're made of different materials too. Nice. Okay, so then do you think, yes or no, that birds and insects share any structural similarities that would suggest that they're closely related? Oof. Yes or no? Do you think birds and insects are closely related because of their structure? Looking at how they're structurally put together. Right. So no, even though they do the same thing, they both help them fly. That's the only similarity that they have. They don't look alike at all. There's no bones in the butterfly. There's no feathers. One's significantly smaller, shorter, different shapes. There are so many more differences than they have similarities. So in this case, we would say that insects and birds are not closely related. They are pretty different, especially if you compare it to all these organisms up here, right? Though they look a little different because they do different things, still structurally, they're all bones, and they're all the same types of bones, and they all do the same things, at least like the bones do, right? Still same shape. So with homologous structures, it shows that they are closely related when they have those similar structures. And with analogous structures, it doesn't necessarily show us that they're related, just tells us that they adapted to their environment. They use their wings to fly, but they still look different and are still very different from each other. Nice job. The last one is one of my favorites. It's called vestigial structures. So the definition is a tad bit longer. What the heck? But so vestigial structures are one of the coolest things. I get kind of nerdy when it comes to these. Sorry. So vestigial structures. These are structures that are remnants of structures that were functional in ancestral forms, but are now reduced in size, so they're smaller, and they serve little to no purpose. So essentially just structures that various organisms have in their bodies that used to have a purpose, but they don't really anymore. That's essentially what these are. So go ahead and write that down in your definitions, and I'll talk a little bit more about that after I give you some time to do that. Just giving you some examples of what vestigial structures are. So there's different examples amongst different animals. We even have some as well. After I give you some time to do the assignment, I'm going to show you this video about different vestigial structures in us. But two examples that I'll show you via these pictures. One is whales, like big hulking blue whales, humpback whales. They have a pelvic bone. So it's kind of there in that little picture. It's not really attached to anything. And as you may know, your pelvis is what attached to your lower legs and allows you to walk upright, right? So why do whales have a pelvic bone if they don't walk? So these kinds of structures, vestigial structures, lead scientists to believe that at some point in their development, they did need it. Not saying that we had huge hulking whales walking on 2 feet. That just sounds super wild. But at some point, before they were the whales that we know them to be, they were walking or something of that sort. Why else would they have a pelvic bone, right? It's not in your body unless at some point you needed it, right? So that's one of the craziest ones for me that I love to talk about. Another vestigial structure that we have is our tailbone, known as the coccyx. So at the bottom of our spine, there's like 3 to 5 vertebrae that are known to be the tailbone. And while now it's like a site for muscles to attach, we don't have tails, but it's a remnant of a time where our ancestors, millions of years ago, needed a tail. And even when we are first developing in the womb, like, I don't know, the first 4 weeks or something like that, we all have tails. It just kind of goes away because we don't need tails as humans. Though in some humans, there's a genetic mutation that happens that they are born with tails, and that does happen sometimes. But tailbones are considered a vestigial structure because we don't really need them. So super cool stuff, gets me hyped. So for how to do this on here, so I'm going to give you about 10 minutes. But number one has you looking at cavefish and minnow. So we have the cavefish and the minnow, and they're related, but the cavefish is blind. Okay, cavefish has no eyes, can't see, completely blind. So for the questions that go along with that, explain why eyesight is not an important adaptation to life in a cave. So why do you think in a cave you don't need to see? For B, what do you think has become the most important adaptation of a cave fish? So think about your senses. If you lose your eyesight, what else is going to need to be good, right? And then the last one, what about the internal structure of the cavefish and minnow suggest common ancestry, that they are related? So tell me, what about the structure, remember the anatomy of these two fish? What tells you that they are related or similar? So that's number one. For number two, here are some human vestigial structures. So we have things like the appendix, the coccyx, the muscles that move your ears, the muscles that make your hair stand up and like give you goosebumps, your little toe, and your wisdom teeth are all considered vestigial structures. So I'm going to give you 10 minutes. So if you only get to like 1 or 2 of these, that's fine. 1 or 2 is good. You don't have to do the whole thing if you run out of time. But with each of these structures, tell me, what do you think their function could possibly be or possibly was? And then tell me, why do you think it became vestigial? Why do you think we don't need them anymore? And this is just what you think. Like I said, the main focus for me is going to be number one. But for number two, if you get to it in like the 10 minutes that I give you, just want to just do as many as you can. 1 or 2 is fine. Okay, let's go ahead and talk about these fishies. Okay, so here we looked at 2 fish. We have the cavefish and the minnow, and we know they're related, but the cavefish is blind. So, why do you think that eyesight is not an important adaptation to living in a cave?
Because it's dark down there already.
Yes, it's hella dark. There's no light going into caves. And if you don't have light, then you can't see anything. Okay, imagine being like in your room or in a room there's no windows, there's no light, there's no nothing. You can't even see like an inch in front of your face. So why the heck would you need eyes? So because it's dark in those caves and they don't have those eyes because they don't need to see, what do you think becomes the most important adaptation then of that cavefish? Oh, nice. What were you gonna say? You unmuted yourself.
I was about
Or
to
you
say just like a sense.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. There are other senses. So we have things like hearing, right? Or feeling. So I know fish are a little different than us. So they kind of have a different way of sensing things around them. Um, I think it's more sensory abilities. But yeah, they're able to kind of feel around them. They have this thing called the lateral line. That's what this thing is. And it kind of helps them detect electromagnetic, oh my gosh, electromagnetic signals from other fish. So if you ever see like a school of fish like swimming together, right, always moving together, that's because of their lateral line. They can actually sense those around them. So yeah, that kind of sensory ability would definitely have to be heightened so they can at least sense their environment without needing to see their environment. Very nice. You all are awesome. Okay, so then for the last one, what about the internal structure of the cavefish and minnow suggests that they're related? Nice, Kaylee, for sure. All right, so they're both fish, so we know that they are similar in some way, shape, or form. Fins is going to be the biggest giveaway. They have fins that have allowed them to adapt to living in water. And if we dissected them, we would probably find things like gills that also show that they're very similar. They would have a similar skeleton. All those things are structures that are very similar, so we can say that they're closely related. Really, the biggest difference is that cave fish have lost their eyesight. Everything else is going to be pretty much identical, just because they live in different parts of the world. Nice job. Are there any questions on part 3? So like I said, if you got to this part, 1 or 2 is good. Oh, I wanted to show you that video. So I was going to give you the rest of the time to work on those 4 conclusion questions. And if you were able to do the 4 conclusion questions, if you could also do the exit ticket, which is just a quick 5-question exit ticket. And that's if you have time to do it. It's the anatomy exit ticket. If you have time, I would love it. If not, I will take some time to make sure that you do it some other time, because I want to make sure that you at least get these conclusion questions done.